Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Dear viewers, your program Barkat Sayam, today's episode is going to be in English like last Wednesday. Before we start our program, let us read, or let me give you the translation for dua for 10th of Ramzan. For some people today is 10th, and for some people today is 11th of Ramzan. So let me give you the translation for the dua of Ramzan, Maha Ramzan 10th. The translation only. O Allah, on this day make me among those who rely on you, from those who you consider successful, and place me among those who are near to you by your favor, O goal of the seekers. This is the dua translation for the 10th of Ramadan, and for the people who are fasting 11th Roza, for them is this translation. O Allah, on this day make me love goodness and dislike corruption and disobedience. Bar me from anger and the fire of hell by your help, O the helper of those who seek help. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So, as I said, today is, for some people, today is 10th of Ramzan, Maha Ramzan, and according to tradition, today is the wafat of Janabe Khadijatul Kubra Salam alaiha. Today, Islam is the greatest force in the world. Its enemy cannot do it any harm. Muslims may forget it, but Islam cannot forget that in its infancy, it were Abu Talib alayhi salam and Khadijatul Kubra salam alaiha who protected it. They made Islam invulnerable. Abu Talib protected the sapling of Islam from the tempests of misbelief, and Khadijatul Kubra irrigated it with her wealth. She did not let the sapling of Islam die from drought. In fact, she didn't even let it wilt from neglect. I would like to have an honor to introduce you our young, respected scholar, Sheikh Ali Abbas Najafi, whom you have praised from in your emails and text messages for his last week lecture and discussion. So let's go to Sheikh Ali Abbas Najafi. First of all, Assalamu alaikum Aqa.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir la'inir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى عترته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد, dear viewers, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would first like to express my ta'ziyah on my behalf and on behalf of all the mu'mineen to the Imam of the age, Al-Imam Al-Hujjah, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, for on this occasion, on the anniversary of the death of his grandmother, Al-Mu'mineen, Sayyida Khadijatul Kubra Al-Tahira Salamullah Alayha. She was that Al-Mu'mineen who upheld all her responsibilities that she was answerable for in the most perfect of ways. And whether that responsibility was in terms of her being the wife of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, in terms of the comfort and the support that she gave to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and the sacrifices that she made for him and for Islam, as well as her being the Mu'mineen, the mother of the believers, the way she treated all the mu'mineen, all the Muslims with kind altruism, charity, and there is no other wife of the Holy Prophet ﷺ who took on these responsibilities in such a perfect manner.
MashaAllah.
If we were to think of a word which would summarize her whole life and her role in Islam, the word that I would come up with is sacrifice.
MashaAllah.
And it was in the month of sacrifice in which she passed away. This holy month of Ramadan, 10 days have passed, 10 days or so, and this is a month in which we are tested to see how much we will sacrifice. We sacrifice during our fast, we sacrifice our desires and our carnal desires, and we sacrifice our time for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We sacrifice our time for His worship, for du'as, for all the a'mal that we undertake during this holy month in reading the Holy Quran and so on. And at the end of the month of Ramadan, we are required to give zakatul fitrah.
Yes.
Throughout the month, it has been heavily emphasized by the Ma'asumeen alayhimus salatu wassalam for us to give charity, to help the poor, to feed the poor, especially at the time of iftar. When we want to break our fast, we should go to our neighbors, go to the poor people and give them food. And this calls for more charity, financial charity and sacrifice. And so therefore this is a month of sacrifice.
Sure.
And one of the greatest personifications of sacrifice is in the personality of Sayyidah Khadijatul Kubra Salamullah alayha. And the first point I would like to make before we start examining history and personalities, it's important to understand that when we look into the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and into the history of Islam, the early history of Islam, we find that many people made their contributions, played their role. However limited it may be, many people did so. But if we look a bit closer, we see that the personalities involved in the establishment of Islam and in its spread and propagation, we can divide those personalities into two categories. Firstly, there were those many people, uncountable people, that who made certain contributions to Islam, but at the end of the day they were dispensable, they were replaceable. If somebody didn't make this contribution, somebody else could come and make that contribution, and together it was a collective contribution which made the effect that it had. So they could be replaceable, somebody else could come in their place. And the personal contribution wasn't the vital aspect. The vital aspect of their contribution was a collective ethos that they had in terms of their sacrifices. And many made their sacrifices. And we won't take anything away from that. But the second category of people are those people who were pivotal, absolutely necessary and irreplaceable and indispensable in the establishment of Islam and then its spread and propagation. And these people, if a person in this category would not have been there, there would have been a huge gap which nobody would be able to fill.
Sure.
And these are the personalities which we see Hazrat Abu Talib alayhi salam and Sayyidah Khadijat al-Kubra and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And these were the pivotal roles that they played. Abu Talib alayhi salam, everybody knows that he took in the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the orphan Prophet, when he was young. When he was young, and he took him in as his own son. He gave him the protection and the guardianship which he needed. And then later on, when the Prophet started propagating Islam and announced his prophethood, Abu Talib alayhi salam, he had that political and social power which he was able to use to guard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as much as he could. Of course, there were limitations to that as well, but the role which he played, nobody else could fill his shoes.
Sure.
Similarly, his son Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam,
Absolutely.
the role which he played as well in the protection of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the propagation of Islam, and the most notable role he played in the defense of Islam was on the battlefield, which nobody can deny, and it's all well documented. And so without Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, nobody would have been there to fill that void. Similarly, Sayyidah Khadija al-Kubra al-Tahira salamullah alayha had such a role. And to understand her role, I've divided her contribution and her role in Islam to three broad categories. Firstly, it was her role as the wife of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was the first area of her immense contribution. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he underwent so many hardships in his life, and so many difficulties, verbal and physical abuse. It was Sayyidah Khadija salamullah alayha which was where his comfort lay. When he returned home, she was the Mawrad al-Sukun, the place where he obtained his comfort and the consolation. Her utter and absolute unconditional loyalty that she displayed for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the wife of the Prophet is incomparable with anybody else. Through all the hard times, from the status in which she was at the start of the marriage until the very end, as we'll discuss, we see the stages that she went through and the sacrifices that she made. And without ever complaining, without ever whining about anything or making any objection to anything, completely unhesitatingly, unflinchingly, she helped the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there is a riwayah from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's reported to have said by in the book Sharh al-Akhbar by Al-Qadi Nu'man al-Maghribi. He reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Maghtamamtu bi ghammin ayyama hayati Abi Talib wa Khadija salamullah alayhima." I did not suffer sadness and grief during the lifetime of Abu Talib and Khadijat al-Kubra salamullah alayhima. And what does this mean? Does this mean that he never went through hardships? No, of course he went through hardships and difficulties. But the point here is that those hardships were forgotten and consoled by them. It's as if they never happened. And this is nobody else played a role even close to this during the early time of Islam. They were at the end of the day, the Prophet knew that he had, despite all the difficulties and hardships, he had Abu Talib alayhi salam and Sayyidah Khadija al-Kubra alayhi salam by his side, and that was enough for him to continue his mission.
Subhanallah.
And then this was instilled by Sayyidah Khadija to her daughter Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha, and that she took, after the passing away of Sayyidah Khadija, she took on this role of being the comforter, the consoler and the nurse for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the extent that the Prophet said that he gave her the laqab of Abiha. She was because she cared for him in the manner that a mother would care for her son. And this we can also take a message away from this, that when a man, after making, when he spends a whole day earning a living, trying to make ends meet, dealing with all manners of people and all manners of issues outside of the home, and then when he returns home, he should expect a household which is warm and cheerful, without adding extra tension to the pressure that he is already subjected to. And the wife in any household has a major contribution to this. Other members of the family also need to help in this matter as well, but the wife has a major contribution, has a major role in ensuring that the husband is as comfortable as possible while he's out there earning his living. So maybe that's one aspect. There's so many things that we can learn from her. This is one thing that we can take from her. This is one of her roles. This is the first role, the first aspect of her contribution to Islam, her as the wife of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we'll speak about the situation in the Shi'ab Abi Talib, the valley of Abu Talib, later on inshallah, where her sacrifice was tested to the limits. But the second aspect of her contribution is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam needed a progeny. He needed the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam to continue on his message. And for them to exist, he needed such a wife that would be the vessel for the nur of the Ahlul Bayt. He needed such a woman who would become the mother of the 11 of the 12 Imams, the mother of his daughter Sayyidah Fatima salamullah alayha. And he found that person within Sayyidah Khadija al-Kubra. I believe this is the main objective of her life, that she was there to provide the progeny of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Much more important than wealth, her wealth.
Yes, the wealth was a benefit there which was coincidental and which was used. And it's very, very beneficial. And as we get to one of the major benefits in terms of the physical spread of Islam was the wealth of Sayyidah Khadija, but spiritually, if you look at it in more depth, the Prophet married many times afterwards, but the progeny had to come from this wife.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
And as we all know, while he was married to her, he never married any other woman. And it was this, she was a vessel, as I said, for the nur of the Ahlul Bayt, and there's a lineage from times old to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he wished this bloodline in the Ahlul Bayt to be pure as well. And the qualities were there within Sayyidah Khadija. This was not an arbitrary decision. The decision was based on the fact that Sayyidah Khadija was she had all those qualities which were necessary to be the mother of the infallible Ma'soomeen alayhimus salatu wassalam. And that's why we, when in the Ziyaratul Waritha, we recite addressing Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam, we say, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّكَ كُنْتَ نُورًا فِي الْأَصْلَابِ الشَّامِخَةِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ الْمُطَهَّرَةِ. We testify that you were this nur, you were this light in the exalted loins and the purified wombs of your forefathers and foremothers. This was a holy, pure bloodline which came from Nabi Adam alayhi salam till Imam al-Hussein, Abi Abdullah alayhi salam. Then we
Sheikh,
continue.
it's not the right time to interrupt you,
No.
but I'm sorry, we need to take a break,
Okay.
and after break I'll request you to continue.
Inshallah.
Dear viewers, after the break we are going to take your live calls. You can ask questions or you can comment on the program, and I would request you rather sending emails or text messages. As I said yesterday also, it would be nice if you call and appreciate or whatever you want. Live calls will be open after the program, or you can make your own comments. So join us after the break, and inshallah we'll see you after the break.